Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome everyone here in this session. My name is József Pálinkás. I'm the former president of the Hungarian Academy of Sciences and the World Science Forum, and also the former president of the Hungarian National Research, Development and Innovation Office, which is a funding agency in Hungary. It's great that so many of you here in this afternoon. We're going to talk about ethics and responsibility in science, but as it was pointed out in the morning session, funding in that case is very important, and this session will be about funding. We have great speakers for that, and also we'll have the possibility with the Slido to put up questions, so I encourage the speakers to put up their questions so that the audience can answer if it's a yes or no question. But just a few introductory remarks. I would like to say that today's scientific research is driven by, of course, curiosity, but also technological and societal needs and challenges. And scientific research is institutionalized a long time ago and uses a significant amount of public and private funds. The researchers are in most cases employed by public or private institutions or firms, and the status and prestige, or sometimes the profit of these institutions or firms, depend on the productivity and results of the research they conduct or they are involved in. Similarly, the advancement, the status, and the prestige, and that way the income of the researchers depend on their results and effectivity. All these leads to a slashing or a fierce competition between institutions and also between researchers, among others, for funding. So it is very clear that the ethical issues funding science is a very important one. I will put up my question after the keynote speaker. And with that, I turn to our keynote speaker this afternoon, who is Professor Honorable Franz Cordova. She is an astrophysicist and the 14th director of National Science Foundation. She was nominated to this position by President of the United States in 2013, so she was nominated by President Obama. And she's leading this agency, which we all know about it. Professor Cordova got her BA from Stanford University and after a PhD in physics from the California Institute of Technology. She's a real leader in science, engineering, and education for more than 3 decades, and she has a distinguished career in both higher education and government. She's an internationally recognized astrophysicist. She holds several positions, which I won't list here. And I ask Professor Cordova to deliver her keynote lecture. Professor Cordova.
Thank you very much, President Pálinkás, for that very nice introduction, and good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to thank President Lovas and the steering committee of the World Science Forum for hosting this important gathering, inviting me to take part, and a special thanks to the Hungarian Academy of Sciences, and also to the people of Budapest for welcoming all of us so warmly. This morning, being a little jet-lagged, I had a small tour of a part of your beautiful city, and I walked up a big boulevard and went and stopped in St. Peter's Basilica, and I learned there was such a thing as kings who are saints. What an amazing concept. And of course, St. Stephen was the patron or founder of Hungary, and then went on past the magnificent opera under some construction, and to the House of Terror, and learned about the momentous moments in the last century of Hungary. And it's just a beautiful city, and one so steeped in culture, and certainly in some of what we're talking about today in responsibility and accountability, and taking that very personally. So I would just like to congratulate Hungary on being a role model in its history for that. This city is also no stranger to science diplomacy. It might even be said that Budapest is its hometown. The first ever World Conference on Science was held here in 1999. That meeting led to the creation of the World Science Forum and a series of global science conferences, many of which were held in Budapest before branching out to other parts of the world. I'm delighted to see that tradition come full circle today in the city where it all began. The theme of this year's forum, the ethics and responsibility of science, also harkens back to that inaugural meeting, which shared the same topic. This is a subject we continually revisit as emerging technologies continue to present new questions for science and society. So I'd like to frame my talk today with these three key points. First, the responsible and ethical conduct of research inspires credible science, a collaborative research culture, and the trust of the public. And that is what is so important about having a responsible and ethical conduct for the research that we do. It's all about trust. It's about the integrity of research. Second, promoting the responsible and ethical conduct of research is central to the fulfillment of NSF's mission. And I can imagine all of your missions, but I'm going to get to talk about NSF today. And a third, the U.S. White House Office of Science and Technology Policy, which we call for short OSTP, is leading a coordinated effort across the U.S. science agencies to support the integrity of America's research enterprise. And so I want to tell you a little bit more about it. I'm more in the category of those of you who were here last night and heard that marvelous talk about Icarus and his father Daedalus and all the warnings that he had. He said that there are those people who talk about the why and the what, and there are people who really worry about how. In Icarus's case, in his father's case, how do we get off this island? So my talk will be about how we do certain things at the National Science Foundation that frame how we think about ethics and responsibility, so that they may be looked on as practices that you may wish to emulate or at least know about. So, what is responsible and ethical conduct? It means ensuring that researchers and research institutions perform with the utmost rigor and integrity, and that our scientific workforce is equipped and dedicated to meeting those high expectations. It means conducting peer review with the highest ethical standards, and we really value the peer review system that we have in our country, and we've shared that with the Global Research Council that I know we'll talk about later. And we just think it's so important that our process of deciding what we will fund has the highest integrity. It means diligently protecting intellectual property, and it means ensuring that research environments are safe equitable, and inclusive. And any one of these things I could spend a great deal of time talking about. As it is, I will just touch upon each of them. Why is responsible and ethical conduct so important? It enables discovery and sound research outcomes, outcomes that you can believe in, that are credible. It promotes best practices that are inherent to collaboration, such as trust and accountability and information sharing. It considers the impact of research on society, and it ensures accountability to the public, thereby strengthening public trust in research. When working to advance the responsible and ethical conduct of research, NSF's activities fall into these three pillars: identifying priorities and determining the appropriateness to the agency. It's very important that we know where we're headed and what's of priority to science, what's in our case of priority to our Congress, which funds us to fund the scientific engineering researchers, but also to always ask ourselves, is that within our mission? Is that appropriate for the National Science Foundation to undertake and not some other agency or arm of the government? So we do this through stakeholder engagement, and it's complemented by data collection and analysis. And that stakeholder engagement is very broad. It can involve the national academies of science and medicine and engineering. It can involve decadal surveys and studies. It can involve the scientific societies like the AAAS that we heard from last night. Second, funding basic research into the underlying issues, including the effectiveness of different approaches to improve the research enterprise. And third, implementing change through policy and public engagement. It is just so important that we fund the research at NSF, but we engage in the policy implications through something called the National Science and Technology Council, on which all the heads of the science agencies sit. And that's where we talk about what are the underlying policies that can move the research agenda along. And we also, all of our agencies, with I think NSF leading, have as a mandate engaging the public to strengthen the trust of the public in scientific research, but also to inspire them, because we know in the end it's all about the next generation. And we think it's part of our mandate to encourage that next generation in many, many ways to have access to science and engineering and to participate in it, and hopefully be inspired enough that some will actually become our next generation of scientists and engineers. So first, on identifying priorities, as I said, it's our first step in supporting responsible and ethical conduct. And to that end, we invest as part of our budget in a lot of studies, working with internal and external stakeholders to illuminate the underlying issues and challenges to be addressed. And these are, on the slide, are several of very recent studies that apply. These studies are typically of broad value to the community and applicable to research internationally, not just directed at NSF or the United States government or the US R&D system. So one of these you can see is about fostering integrity of research. That's produced a big study in 2017, which the National Science Foundation funded. And then much more recently, this past summer, reproducibility and replicability in science, which also, of course, pertain to the big ethics questions. And this was, again, a study that NSF funded at the National Academies of Science. Our science and engineering indicators that let us know not just how we're doing in the US, but in the entire world. And then various other reports to do with science education and the development of the STEM workforce. Investing in fundamental research is the second part of our approach on responsible and ethical conduct. Here are a few examples of how we aim to advance research on the ethical aspects of science and technology in the realm of artificial intelligence. And I could have chosen any number of subjects. There are many, many, from gene editing to the use of vaccines to genetically modified foods and so on. Many, many issues where the human and the technological meet, and there are lots of questions to do with responsible conduct of research. But I want to give some examples about artificial intelligence because it's something that most of our countries are very engaged in. It's a new, or let's say revived, frontier of a lot of research activity. So a couple of examples. We have a program called AI and Society, which is a collaborative effort among social and computational sciences, and an entity called the Partnership for AI. This is a partnership of 50 U.S. industries that are all interested in artificial intelligence. They're big industries like the Microsofts and Amazons and Googles that you've heard so much about, and much smaller in startup industries, but 50 of them. The goal of this effort is to understand the social challenges arising from artificial intelligence technology and to enable a scientific response. The program explores approaches at the outset that consider principles for safe and trustworthy AI, as well as the issues that confound us of bias, human-AI interaction, and user education. And I think this is a frontier that lots and lots of people are very engaged in, and including a lot of people who don't know anything about machine learning and deep learning, but are just worried about where artificial intelligence is headed. And the way we fund this is we define through the partnership what the big goals are, but we do not define the smaller goals. We let the community submit proposals, and we, NSF, which has a history of doing a good merit review, are the ones who are choosing the proposals we fund in this area. A second example is NSF's partnership with Amazon on fairness in AI. It's jointly supported computational research focused on fairness, and we each put in about $10 million a year over 3 years. Specific topics of interest include transparency, accountability, potential biases, and inclusivity in research. And so this frontier of partnerships is one that has lots of hazards and warning signs. And I know our government and probably some of the countries that you represent want us to do much more in partnerships, and we're all for it. But we also realize that we want to be very careful with partnerships, that we need, as the federal funding agency that funds basic research, NSF wants to be the one that chooses the proposals that we fund in this area. So we welcome partners that want to contribute money, that are interested in the questions, that want to look at what the results are. But we do not, we want to avoid conflicts of interest, let me say it that way, and make sure that the principles of good unbiased merit review apply here. In addition, we've invited the research community to explore studies into fairness, ethics, accountability, and transparency, which spell the acronym FEAT, F-E-A-T, across all areas of computer and information science and engineering. This is beyond artificial intelligence. So it's an example of how we strive to understand the gaps between research ideals and practice. Part of NSF's role, here, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that it just comes up one thing at a time here, okay? So, part of NSF's role is to serve as the premier U.S. funding agency, helping to train the American science and engineering workforce. And in fact, a lot of times when I talk with industry, when they don't know NSF really well, they will say some things like, oh, you're the Scientific Workforce Agency. And when I first heard that, I bridled a bit at it. I said, no, we fund discovery research. We fund the emerging research where we don't even know where the outcomes are going to come, the very early stage research. And they said, no, but you fund a lot of students at all levels, from kindergarten up through high school, college, graduate students, postdocs, and early faculty, and so on. And the more I thought about it, I thought, yes, absolutely. We do fund the workforce because every piece of research that we fund involves the workforce at some part of their career. I can't count how many people come up to me and say, thank you for the first grant that I got to do science. I was 16 years old, or I was very young, and NSF was the first agency to fund me and get me started. So we have focused on ethics across our research portfolio as part of the training that we do with training the science and engineering workforce, particularly at our universities. So here are two examples of our efforts in computational training, which we've been developing over the last decade. Computer literacy for all is one of the goals of our nation's strategic plan for STEM education. We do have, I think, a very good plan. We, over every 5 years, we enunciate a new plan. The most recent one was pronounced at the White House last December, and it's actually an all-agency plan. NSF gets to be a leader in it because of our particular role in funding STEM education and the STEM workforce. So this plan really has some new elements, has a new element of partnership, new element of inclusiveness. We want to be sure that all people, especially women, underrepresented minorities, are brought into this. And it has a big emphasis on computer science and computational thinking for everybody. We supported the development of a new advanced placement exam in computer science, which is very important for getting into college. It includes modules on ethics and societal impact of computing and information innovations. So some of you who have taken a test to get into college remember that it might have been all about facts and figures to do with science and mathematics and so on. Well, we also have, as part of the exam, modules on ethics and societal impact. Likewise, we've seen soaring enrollments of majors and non-majors in computer science at the undergraduate level. It's just exploding in the US, as students in nearly all disciplines pursue core competencies in computational and data science, which is so important to all of our fields. We've launched a new program, Computing in Undergraduate Education, that supports instructional innovations in light of these soaring enrollments. And this program also encourages integrating ethics into the new approaches, both within the core computer science courses and across the relevant interdisciplinary areas. As part of our efforts to implement change through policy and public engagement, we have a new webpage on nsf.gov, that's our website, which brings together in one page, one online destination, NSF's various efforts to support responsible and ethical conduct. And I thought, since this whole conference is focused on that you might like to know what that one page looks like. So I have a copy of it here, but I encourage you, since this is in such small writing, to go to this page. It summarizes 4 objectives. 1, to generate and disseminate knowledge with rigor and integrity. 2nd, to conduct peer review with the highest ethical standards. 3rd, to protect proprietary information and intellectual property from inappropriate disclosure. And 4th, to ensure students and colleagues are treated fairly and with respect. And so you'll find a lot more information and programs and so forth on this webpage. Responsible and ethical conduct is also a priority of the White House, as led by Kelvin Drogemeyer, who's the director of the Office of Science and Technology Policy. And here's a quote of his I thought I would share with you. I'll read it. Unleashing American discovery and innovation means providing the environment that allows our scientists, engineers, inventors, and entrepreneurs to do what they do best: explore, discover, and be creative. This image shows the organization of the National Science and Technology Council, which is referred to as NSTC, at the White House. And Kelvin Droegemeier sits as the organizer, the head of this. And this has always been in my life, and I've served 5 presidents of the United States, going all the way back to the middle 1990s when I went to NASA as its chief scientist. I've always been a representative on the National Science and Technology Council because I said in my opening remarks, this is, as they say in the play, the Broadway play Hamilton, this is the room where it happens. This is where the agencies that are science agencies or mission agencies, space agencies, agricultural agencies, they do their research at their agencies. We all get together as heads and we talk about where are we going with policy and how can we help affect and shape policy, science policy, for the betterment of the country. It has an effective set of committees, and the committees are all in the circles around the middle here, where U.S. Science and technology-related agencies work together to set national goals and develop our strategies. You'll see that it's made up of 6 primary committees: the Science and Technology Enterprise, the Environment, Homeland and National Security, Science, STEM Education, and Technology. And it also includes 2 special committees: the Joint Committee on Research Environments and the Select Committee on Artificial Intelligence. I happen to co-chair 5 of these 8 committees, so I know a lot about what's going on in the policy world of the United States. Each of these committees oversees abundant subcommittees and working groups that do all the work. They coordinate the efforts across the federal government. So I want to just mention one because it's brand new. It was started under the leadership of Dr. Droegemeier as the relatively new head this calendar year of the National Science and Technology Council. And it's called the Joint Committee on Research Environments, or JCOR. He launched it in May of this year. And it's co-chaired by all of us sitting there, several of the U.S. science agencies. And it has 3 objectives: to elevate the research environment issues, to convene and lead by example, and to engage with the external community. So I think this is a sea change for us, and so I wanted to explain it in just a little bit of detail. It's made up of 4 subcommittees. And by the way, they all happen to be co-chaired by an NSF staff member, so we're pleased to be integrated into all of these. And you see there's kind of amoeba strip going around all of them, which is there to indicate that they're all related to each other, even though they have distinctive elements. So there's one of the subcommittees is called Rigor and Integrity in Research, and it builds on many studies that examine responsible and ethical conduct, focusing on what federal agencies can do to further implement the many thoughtful recommendations made in those reports. The second one there is the Safe, Inclusive Research Environments, and it wants to do just what it says, to promote safer and more inclusive research environments for across the entire science and engineering enterprise. And right now it's conducting a review of all the agencies' policies and practices that are addressed at targeting harassment in all its different forms in the research environment and creating a summary of promising practices. NSF was the leadership agency in our federal government that took a big stance on making our research environments more safe and inclusive by introducing a special term and condition within the rules for grantees proposing for research money by saying that universities had to alert us if they had some problems in the research environment with harassment, namely if one of the investigators was being accused and found to be guilty of harassment. And this made just a huge difference for the research environment at our universities and for Congress, which is asked now in a bill for all the agencies to follow suit. And frankly, for me, as a woman in science, I have to share with you that this was an enormous enlightening moment to realize through our own survey and through the very deep survey of the National Academy of Sciences, which to this date is by a factor of 10 the most popular study they have ever done, the most accessed study with the number of hits online for the results of this study, that this has been a pervasive problem in the research environment. And so we felt as an agency and now as a federal government that we simply have to deal with it because we're just losing too many people that do not feel that they are safe and included in the research environment. So important one. The third one there is Research Security Subcommittee. It's been working closely with security offices and agencies and engaging regularly with external groups like universities to develop guidelines for identifying and mitigating potential conflicts of interest and conflicts of commitment associated with foreign support of U.S. researchers. I would say that this one issue alone takes up 50% of my time. It's a very big issue in the United States. And then finally, the coordinating administration requirements for research. This committee is meant to try to reduce administrative burden on our researchers. First of all, we have to reduce administrative burden within the agency. There's a lot of it, and so we've been chipping away at that. But our proposers say that they're spending about 40% of their time on administrative work, and that's all work that takes away from them actually doing research. We're also working with international partners to advance responsible and ethical conduct worldwide, and that was my desire to be at this forum because of that. I want to mention the Global Research Council in this context. It's an organization about 7 years old, made up of science and engineering funding agencies from around the world who work to promote best practices for international collaboration research. And there on the left is the list of where every year the place changes where we host the annual meeting. We have lots of regional meetings in between these major meetings. The first one was in Washington, D.C., because my predecessor was one of those who started the Global Research Council. And the most recent one was in Sao Paulo, and this year's one will be in South Africa. At the second annual meeting in Berlin, the Global Research Council established principles for research funding agencies to create an international environment that fosters research integrity. So I think it's kind of nice to reflect back on that moment in May of 2013 when the research agencies were all getting together to foster research integrity, ethics, responsibility. The principles expressed by the participating agencies, and we always come out with a list of principles that we all agree to at the end of each meeting, is to lead by example in the responsible management of research programs, to promote continual training in research integrity, and to work cooperatively with international partners to support and facilitate research integrity worldwide. I'm very proud to serve on the governing board of the GRC and look forward to continuing our work to support a global ethical framework for our research with all the nations of the world. Another example of our efforts with international partners to advance ethical and responsible conduct is our work on artificial intelligence with the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, or OECD. NSF was a key contributor from the US in developing the OECD principles for trustworthy AI. Some of you may have participated in that event not so long ago. The key goal is to ensure that AI systems are safe, secure, robust, and designed with human-centered values, including fairness. The formulation of these OECD trustworthy AI principles involved input from a diverse group of stakeholders. As shown here, the international community agreed to 5 principles for responsible stewardship of trustworthy AI. 1, inclusive and sustainable growth and well-being. 2, human-centered values and fairness. 3, transparency and explainability of AI systems. 4th, robustness and safety of AI systems. And 5th, accountability of AI systems. Now, some of you may not be working on AI, so substitute what you are working for in that. These principles help develop a common understanding of AI concepts, including what is an AI system, what is the AI system life cycle, and who are the stakeholders and who are the AI actors. So, today, more than ever, we have to examine how our new landscape of research is influencing our world and vice versa. That understanding may inform the research practices and innovations of the future. This is a new landscape for research. Some may prefer to focus squarely on the research and not bother with the broader ethical or policy issues. But these factors are vital to the integrity and credibility of science, and I congratulate Hungary for hosting a conference on these important issues. A commitment to the responsible and ethical conduct of research is more than a philosophical goal. It's the roadmap to a more inclusive science. A framework to support it ensures the inclusion and support of the community's best talent, and it provides a pathway for their production of rigorous research that is trustworthy and ethical. There are no singular or simple fixes for making the practice of science more ethical. And I was inspired by the story we heard last night of Icarus. It takes listening. It takes time and attention and engagement and negotiation and partnerships to share best practice. Thank you for your partnership in this important effort.
Thank you very much, Director Korova, for this wonderful talk, and also for the encouragement